Today, the 28th of July, 2025, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stood before the nation and delivered his fourth State of the Nation address. It was a speech that aimed to project strength and reclaim a sense of control. The president spoke for just over an hour, but, his words carried significant weight, particularly when he turned his attention to the persistent problem of corruption. He adopted a firm tone, declaring a new aggressive war against the graft that has long plagued government projects and eroded public trust. This was not a vague promise. It was a direct and pointed warning to those who have exploited the system for personal gain, signaling a potential shift in his administration's approach to governance. The president's message was clear: the time for tolerance is over. He specifically condemned the corrupt practices that have become almost commonplace in government transactions, using familiar terms like kickbacks, initiatives, and for the boys. By using this language, he showed an understanding of how these schemes work from the inside. His address came at a critical time for his presidency, following a challenging midterm election in May and a stalled impeachment process against his vice president, Sara Duterte. Marcos needed to deliver a powerful statement. His focus on anti-corruption seemed designed to do just that, offering a clear enemy for his administration to fight and a cause for the public to rally behind. A key part of the president's speech was his focus on infrastructure, particularly flood control projects. He directly linked the recent devastation caused by typhoons and the monsoon to substandard works, suggesting that public funds meant for protection were instead lining the pockets of officials and contractors. This accusation was not made lightly. He promised a thorough review and audit of all flood control projects from the past 3 years. This was a bold move, as it put the Department of Public Works and Highways directly in the spotlight and created a clear measure by which his administration's sincerity could be judged by the public and his political rivals alike. The president did not stop at promises of investigation. He issued a stern warning to Congress regarding the upcoming 2026 national budget, which is proposed at a staggering 6.793 trillion pesos. He insisted that the budget must strictly follow the National Expenditure Program, free from any self-serving insertions or last-minute changes. In an unprecedented threat, he declared he would veto any budget that was tampered with, even if it meant the government would have to operate on a reenacted budget. This was a direct challenge to the legislative branch, asserting his executive power and positioning himself as the guardian of the nation's coffers against political interests. The president's strong words against corruption did not go unnoticed in the halls of the Senate. Key figures from across the political aisle were quick to offer their reactions, with many expressing praise for his newfound resolve. Senate Minority Leader Vicente Sotto III, a veteran politician, was particularly impressed. He commended President Marcos's stern warning aimed at the Department of Public Works and Highways, an agency long suspected of being a hotbed for graft. Sotto highlighted the president's commitment to protecting the integrity of the National Expenditure Program as a crucial step. This support from an opposition leader provided Marcos with a valuable bipartisan endorsement of his anti-corruption agenda, lending it credibility. Another powerful voice, Senator Lacson, echoed these sentiments. Known for his own long-standing crusade against corruption and wasteful government spending, Lacson applauded the president's tough remarks. He particularly praised the threat to return the 2026 budget to Congress if it deviated from the original plan. Lacson, who has spent years scrutinizing budget allocations, noted the immense scale of the problem. He pointed out that since 2011, nearly 2 trillion pesos had been allocated for flood management alone. He grimly estimated that as much as half of the Department of Public Works and Highways funds for these projects might have been lost to corrupt practices over the years. Senate Majority Leader Villanueva also joined the chorus of praise, backing the president's firm stance against graft. As a key ally, his support was expected, but it helped to solidify the narrative that the administration was serious about reform. However, Villanueva's praise was not without a caveat. While he supported the anti-corruption drive, he also used the opportunity to criticize the president for what was not mentioned in the speech. He pointed out the glaring omission of any plan to tackle the growing problem of online gambling, an issue he has passionately campaigned against, reiterating his call for a total ban on the industry. The collective reaction from these influential senators paints a complex picture. On one hand, there is a clear and broad appreciation for the president's direct confrontation with corruption, especially within public works. It suggests a potential for cross-party cooperation on this specific issue, which could empower the president's initiatives. On the other hand, Villanueva's comment shows that political allies and critics alike will be watching closely, not just for what is done, but also for what is left undone. The support is welcome, but it comes with expectations for a comprehensive approach that addresses all forms of systemic rot. President Marcos did not just speak in generalities. He outlined specific directives aimed at dismantling corrupt networks within the government bureaucracy. His primary target was the Department of Public Works and Highways, which he accused of failing the public through substandard flood control projects. He ordered the department to produce a complete list of all such projects undertaken in the last 3 years. This was not merely for internal review. The president boldly promised to make this entire list public, a move designed to empower citizens and watchdog groups with the information needed to hold officials and contractors accountable for their work. This directive for transparency was backed by the promise of real consequences. The president announced that a full-scale audit and performance review would be conducted on these projects. He made it clear that this process would not be a mere formality. The goal, he stated, was to identify and file charges against every single official and contractor found guilty of pocketing public funds. This sends a powerful message that the era of impunity, where shoddy work went unpunished and project funds mysteriously vanished, might be coming to an end. The success of this audit will be a major test of his political will. The president's strategy extends beyond just punishing past offenses. It aims to prevent future ones. His warning to Congress about the 2026 budget was a preemptive strike against the practice of inserting pork barrel projects. By threatening to operate on a reenacted budget, a scenario most politicians wish to avoid as it limits their ability to fund new pet projects, Marcos has created a powerful deterrent. This puts the responsibility squarely on the shoulders of lawmakers to produce a clean budget. It is a high-stakes gamble that forces Congress to choose between their own interests and the president's public anti-corruption campaign. This multi-pronged approach, combining public transparency, punitive action, and legislative pressure, forms the core of Marcos's new anti-corruption strategy. It is a blueprint that seems designed for maximum public impact. By focusing on a tangible issue like flood control, which directly affects the lives and safety of millions of Filipinos, especially after recent typhoons, he has made the abstract concept of corruption feel personal and urgent. The public will now wait to see if these bold directives translate into dismissed officials, canceled contracts, and, most importantly, better-built infrastructure that can withstand the next storm. The president's fiery anti-corruption rhetoric cannot be separated from the turbulent political landscape in which it was delivered. His administration recently faced a setback in the May 2025 midterm elections, where his allies secured only half of the available Senate seats. This result was seen as a weakening of his political mandate. Furthermore, his presidency has been overshadowed by a high-profile, though currently stalled, impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte. This context suggests that the State of the Nation address was a calculated move to project an image of a strong, decisive leader who is firmly in command and fighting for the people's interests. Analysts view this renewed focus on corruption as a strategic effort to consolidate power and build momentum for the future. The 2028 presidential election is already on the horizon, and Vice President Duterte is widely considered a leading contender, potentially challenging the candidate Marcos anoints. By launching a popular and highly visible anti-graft campaign, President Marcos can rally public support to his side, effectively framing himself as the nation's chief protector against the very systems his political rivals may be associated with. This move could help him reclaim the narrative and bolster his influence over the national political agenda. The true test of the president's sincerity will come with his next major appointment, the new ombudsman. The Office of the Ombudsman is the country's primary anti-graft body, and the choice of who will lead it will be scrutinized intensely. Appointing a truly independent and fearless individual would signal a genuine commitment to reform. Conversely, choosing a loyalist with a less-than-stellar record would immediately undermine his strong words and suggest that the entire anti-corruption stance is nothing more than political theater. This single appointment could make or break the credibility of his entire campaign against graft. Ultimately, President Marcos's bold stand is a high-stakes political maneuver. It has the potential to redefine his presidency, transforming him from a leader with a contested mandate into a popular champion of good governance. If he follows through with his promises, prosecutes corrupt officials, and cleans up public works, he could secure a powerful legacy and significantly influence the outcome of the 2028 election. However, if his words prove to be empty, the public backlash could be severe, further eroding trust and leaving his administration more vulnerable than before. The nation is watching, waiting to see if this is a true turning point or just another chapter in the long story of broken promises.